Have you ever felt like your own mind turns against you the moment life gets hard? When pressure rises, doubts creep in, and suddenly you freeze. You want to stay focused, stay grounded, stay strong. But instead, your thoughts spiral, your emotions take over, and your discipline disappears. It's like sitting in the cockpit of a jet without knowing how to fly. Everything looks powerful, but the moment turbulence hits, you crash. Or like holding a map in a foreign language, you have the tools but no clarity. Just like the confused pilot and the unreadable map, an untrained mind isn't weak, it's just not prepared. And when pressure comes, it doesn't matter how smart you are, only how steady you've trained yourself to be. Because here's the truth most people never learn: your mind isn't a cage, it's a weapon. And if you don't sharpen it daily, it will turn on you. But once you take control, that's when your focus locks in. That's when pressure no longer rattles you. That's when you stop reacting and start leading. So, how do you train your mind to become unstoppable, calm under chaos, steady under stress, sharp in every decision? Stay with me until the end, because the final one might be the hardest to master, but it changes everything. Let's begin. Number 1. Build discipline, not motivation. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood keys to an unstoppable mind: building discipline instead of chasing motivation. Motivation feels good when it's there. It gives you a burst of energy, a rush of excitement. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It's tied to mood, to emotion, to fleeting bursts of inspiration. And when it disappears, as it always does, so does your momentum. That's why the people who rely on motivation burn out. They start strong, but the moment it gets hard or boring or uncomfortable, they quit. Here's the truth: motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire. And unlike motivation, discipline doesn't wait for the right time or the perfect mood. Discipline shows up when it's raining, when you're tired, when no one's watching, and when you feel like giving up. It's the muscle you build by doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. Because that's the difference between people who start and people who finish. One waits for a feeling, the other acts on principle. This is where Stoic psychology comes in. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's not just about how others see you, it's about the humility it takes to start small, to struggle, to do the hard things that don't always come with praise or applause. The Stoics believed that the mind must be trained like the body, with repetition, discomfort, and consistency. And discipline is the proof that you've stopped waiting for the world to make it easy. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, wanted to become a writer. For years she waited for the right moment to start. She thought she needed more inspiration, more motivation, more clarity. But every time she sat down to write, her energy faded. She'd write a few paragraphs, then stop. One day, she made a decision to write for 30 minutes every morning, no matter what. Tired? She wrote. Busy? She wrote. Uninspired? She wrote anyway. It wasn't glamorous and it wasn't easy, but weeks turned into months, and before long, she had finished her first draft. Not because of a motivational breakthrough, but because of simple, relentless discipline. So how do you build an unstoppable mind? First, stop waiting for motivation. It's nice when it's there, but it's not required. Second, build habits that keep moving, even when your feelings don't. Discipline grows through repetition, not mood. And finally, embrace the discomfort. Every time you act despite resistance, you become mentally tougher, more focused, more unshakable. At the end of the day, motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. Don't wait to feel ready. Start now. Build the kind of mind that moves on principle, not emotion. That's what makes you unstoppable. Number 2, master your response to adversity. Let's talk about one of the most important traits of an unstoppable mind, how you respond when life doesn't go your way. Because let's be honest, adversity is coming. Plans will fall apart. People will disappoint you. Unexpected problems will crash through your peace like a wrecking ball. And in those moments, you have two choices: react emotionally or respond with control. Most people try to change the world around them, blaming, complaining, resisting. But the Stoics knew better. They taught us that real strength doesn't come from controlling what happens. It comes from mastering how you respond. Here's the truth. You can't stop the storm, but you can anchor yourself in the middle of it. When you train your mind to respond instead of react, you create space between stimulus and action. That space is where power lives. Anyone can be calm when things are easy, but the mind that remains steady during chaos, that's unstoppable. Because resilience isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about using it as fuel. Marcus Aurelius said it perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the core of Stoic psychology. You don't control other people, outcomes, or circumstances, but you always control what you do next. Will you crumble, or will you adapt, learn, and grow stronger? Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Brandon, lost his job without warning. Bills were piling up, and his confidence was shaken. At first, he panicked, blamed his boss, and fell into a cycle of stress. But then he made a choice. He stopped focusing on what he couldn't change and started focusing on what he could. Every day, he woke up at the same time, applied for jobs, learned new skills, and trained his mind to stay focused. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't instant. But eventually, Brandon landed a better opportunity than the one he lost. Looking back, he said, the thing that changed wasn't the job, it was his mindset. He stopped being a victim of his circumstances and started becoming the master of his response. So how do you train your mind to handle adversity? First, pause before you react. That moment of stillness is where clarity begins. Second, remind yourself of what you can control, your thoughts, your words, your next step. And finally, reframe the challenge. Ask, what can this teach me? Or, how can I grow from this? At the end of the day, life will test you. But the test isn't about what happens, it's about how you handle it. Master your response, and you master your mind. And once you do that, you become unstoppable. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, detach from what you can't control. Let's talk about one of the most powerful mental shifts you can make, learning to let go of what's beyond your control. The truth is, most of our stress doesn't come from what's happening. It comes from our desire to control what we never could in the first place. We worry about what others think. We stress over the future. We replay conversations, obsess over outcomes, and cling to results as if our peace depends on them. But the Stoics taught us the opposite. They believed that freedom begins the moment you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Here's the truth. Worrying about other people's opinions, the future, or external outcomes weakens your focus. It splits your energy and distracts you from what actually matters, your own thoughts, choices, and actions. The more you try to control things outside of yourself, the more frustrated, anxious, and overwhelmed you become. But when you finally accept what you cannot change, you unlock something rare, inner peace in a world that refuses to slow down. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That's not apathy, it's clarity. When you stop chasing control, you reclaim your energy. You stop fighting life and you start flowing with it. you realize that your power has never been in what happens to you. It's always been in how you respond to what happens. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Julia, used to worry constantly about how others perceived her. Every time she spoke up in meetings, she'd spend hours afterward overanalyzing her words, wondering if she sounded smart enough, confident enough, likable enough. It drained her, until one day she read a single line that shifted her perspective. Other people's opinions are none of your business. That became her mantra. She started focusing on speaking with honesty and clarity, not on how it would be received. And something unexpected happened. She became more confident, more respected, and far more at peace. Not because others changed, but because she stopped giving her power away. So how do you detach from what you can't control? First, identify what's yours to carry: your attitude, your actions, your decisions. Let go of the rest. Second, remind yourself daily, if it's outside my control, it's outside my concern. And third, protect your energy. Don't waste it on outcomes, opinions, or futures that haven't even happened yet. At the end of the day, the strongest mind isn't the one that controls everything. It's the one that knows what to release. Detach from what you can't control, and you'll find a kind of freedom no one can take from you. That's the mindset of someone truly unstoppable. Number 4, practice voluntary discomfort. Let's talk about one of the most underrated ways to build an unstoppable mind: voluntary discomfort. Most people wait until life forces them into discomfort. They only get tough when they have no other choice. But the Stoics taught us something radically different. Choose discomfort before it chooses you. Don't wait for hardship to strike. Seek it out on your own terms. Why? Because the person who trains in discomfort doesn't panic when life gets hard. They've already been there. They've already built the muscle. Here's the truth. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort. Easy food, easy entertainment, easy choices. But comfort doesn't build resilience. Struggle does. The mind becomes strong the same way the body does, through tension, resistance, and stress. If you want to be mentally unshakable, you have to push yourself beyond what feels good. Not because you're being punished, but because that's how strength is made. Seneca put it best when he said, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest fare and coarse dress, saying to yourself all the while, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" That's not just ancient wisdom, it's a blueprint for mental power. When you voluntarily expose yourself to discomfort, you take fear out of the equation. You realize that what you were so afraid of, going without, facing difficulty, stepping into the unknown, was never as bad as your mind made it seem. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Anthony, used to panic at the slightest disruption. Running late, total meltdown. Internet down, stress overload. But then he started adopting Stoic practices. He began taking cold showers, not because he enjoyed it, but because it trained his nervous system to stay calm in discomfort. He fasted one day a week, not for weight loss, but to teach his body and mind that hunger wouldn't break him. He intentionally walked without music, sat with silence, and occasionally slept without a blanket. And slowly, everything changed. Anthony stopped reacting. He became grounded, calm, resilient, not because life got easier, but because he got stronger. So how do you practice voluntary discomfort? First, find small ways to challenge yourself. Take a cold shower, skip a meal, go for a run when you don't want to. Second, do it with intention. Don't just suffer. Observe, notice how your mind reacts. And third, remind yourself, this is how I become stronger. At the end of the day, an unstoppable mind isn't built in comfort. It's built in the cold, in the quiet, in the discomfort you choose when no one's watching. Train there, and when real adversity comes, you'll already be ready. If you've watched the video this far, Don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. Speak less. Observe more. Let's talk about one of the most underrated powers of a truly unstoppable mind: knowing when to stay quiet. In a world that rewards noise, instant reactions, and constant commentary, silence is a rare form of strength. Most people rush to speak, rush to respond, rush to prove their point. But the Stoics taught the opposite. A wise mind listens more than it speaks, watches more than it reacts, and reflects more than it rushes. Here's the truth: the less you speak, the more you gain. Not just respect, but clarity, control, calm. Every word you don't say becomes a moment of power you keep for yourself. Because speech is tied to impulse, and impulse is tied to ego. The more you rush to fill silence, the more likely you are to reveal insecurity, misjudge a situation, or say something you can't take back. But when you choose to observe first, you give yourself space to read the room, to understand intention, to see what others miss. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said it best: "Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue." Why? Because wounds from the feet heal faster than the damage caused by careless words. A strong mind knows that silence is not weakness, it's strategy. It doesn't speak to show off, it speaks to bring value. And when it speaks, people listen. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, was promoted to lead a team that was already high-performing. At first, he thought leadership meant talking more, giving constant advice, making sure his voice was always heard. But he quickly noticed that his team became quieter, less open. People stopped sharing ideas. Why? Because Daniel was filling all the space. So he made a shift. He started asking more questions and saying less. In meetings, he'd let silence stretch, watching who spoke up and how. He observed patterns, motivations, unspoken tensions, and from that quiet space, he learned more about his team than he ever had through speaking. Within months, the entire dynamic changed. People trusted him more, respected him more, not because he talked more, but because he truly listened. So how do you build this kind of mental discipline? First, practice pausing before you speak. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Second, observe what's being said and what isn't. People reveal more through their behavior than through their words. And third, let silence be your strength. In silence, you stay centered, you stay sharp. At the end of the day, the strongest minds aren't the loudest, they're the most aware. Speak less, observe more, because sometimes the quietest one in the room is the one with the most power, and the one who listens deeply sees what everyone else misses. That's what makes the mind truly unstoppable. Number 6. Sharpen your thoughts daily. Let's talk about one of the most essential habits behind an unstoppable mind: sharpening your thoughts every single day. Most people train their bodies, plan their goals, chase their ambitions, but neglect the one thing that controls it all: their mind. And here's the truth: your mind is a blade. Either it's being sharpened or it's getting dull. There's no in-between. If you don't challenge your thoughts, if you don't reflect on your beliefs, if you don't question your assumptions, your mind becomes soft. And a soft mind can't face a hard life. Here's the truth: strength doesn't start in the body, it starts in the mind. The people who are mentally sharp don't get that way by accident. They train. They read to expand their perspective. They write to untangle their thoughts. They reflect to align their actions with their values. They make time every single day to get clearer, calmer, and more focused, because without clarity, even the strongest person becomes lost. But with a sharpened mind, even the most chaotic storm becomes manageable. Seneca said it best: the mind that is not exercised becomes lazy and corrupt. Think about that. If you don't exercise your body, it weakens. If you don't use your muscles, they shrink. And if you don't exercise your mind, it becomes reactive, impulsive, easily swayed by noise and emotion. But when you sharpen it, when you feed it wisdom, challenge it with silence, discipline it with writing, you build something rare, inner clarity. And from that clarity comes unstoppable direction. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Eric, was going through a rough time. His career was stalling, his relationships were strained, and he felt overwhelmed every day. He wasn't lazy, he was lost. Then one morning, he decided to do something different. He woke up, opened a blank journal, and started writing. Not for anyone else, just for himself. Thoughts, fears, questions. Every morning, 10 minutes. Then he started reading. One page of a Stoic book a day, just one. Within weeks, something changed. His thoughts became clearer. His emotions settled. He made decisions with calm. Nothing outside changed at first, but everything inside did. And that's where strength begins. So how do you sharpen your thoughts daily? First, read something that stretches your mind, even a single paragraph. Second, write your fears, your goals, your mistakes. Get it out of your head and onto paper. And third, reflect. Ask, what did I learn today? Where can I improve? What still controls me? At the end of the day, an unstoppable mind isn't built through motivation. It's built through discipline. Your thoughts shape your reality, so sharpen them daily, because when the mind is clear, the path becomes simple, and when the mind is strong, nothing can break you. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7. Choose stillness over chaos. Let's talk about a rare and powerful trait that defines an unstoppable mind. Choosing stillness when the world around you is in chaos. In a time where everyone is rushing, reacting, arguing, and panicking, staying calm isn't just difficult, it's almost rebellious. But the Stoics knew this centuries ago. True power lies not in speed or noise, but in stillness. Because when others lose their grip, the one who can pause, breathe, and see clearly becomes the most dangerous person in the room. Here's the truth. When you choose stillness, you're not checking out, you're leveling up. You're not ignoring the storm, you're stepping outside of it. And in that space, you gain something most people never find: control. While others are consumed by emotion, you gain clarity. While they react, you respond. And that small gap, the pause before the action, is what separates chaos from wisdom, weakness from strength. Seneca said, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." That's not just poetic, it's tactical. Misfortune gets its power from your panic. It multiplies when you react blindly. But the moment you meet it with calm, its grip weakens. And this isn't just about moments of crisis. Stillness is a practice, a mindset. It's what allows you to think clearly in tough conversations, make strong decisions under pressure, and move through life without being controlled by noise, urgency, or fear. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Tyler, was working at a fast-paced startup where chaos was the norm. Everyone was in constant motion, panicking over numbers, reacting to emails like their lives depended on it. But Tyler was different. In meetings, he'd sit quietly, listen longer, and speak less. But when he did, people listened. During emergencies, he'd slow down while everyone else sped up. At first, people mistook his calm for passivity, but over time, they saw the truth. He wasn't checked out. He was in complete control. Tyler's stillness gave him presence, and his presence gave him influence. He became the person people turned to when it really mattered. Not because he had all the answers, but because his mind wasn't cluttered with noise. So how do you develop this kind of stillness? First, slow your breath. When the world speeds up, your breath is your anchor. Second, pause before you speak or act. Ask yourself, what's the wisest response right now? Not the fastest, not the loudest, the wisest. And third, protect your mind. Spend time in silence, away from screens, voices, and constant input. Make stillness a habit, not just a reaction. At the end of the day, chaos is everywhere, but it only controls you if you let it inside. When you choose stillness over panic, reflection over reaction, you step into a deeper kind of power, one that doesn't just survive the storm, but silences it. And that's what makes a mind truly unstoppable. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.